first thing I just wanted to ask you about is your name. Is that your real name?
Andrew Blooms is not my real name.
Okay.
So there's a YouTuber. My real name is Andrew Huang, Huang.
Huang.
Sir. Okay. So there's a YouTuber that shares the same name. So when I started doing music and art, really going for it, I had to go like down 6 or 7 pages just to find the video that I posted under Andrew Huang.
Uh-huh.
So I decided I'm going to take a stage name.
Okay. And why Blooms?
Blooms is obviously kind of symbolic of a flower and this idea of growth and growing towards growing without doubt in mind. So like just nature, these things just grow and they don't worry about the outcome really.
Yeah.
They just are. So I really like that kind of idea.
Yeah. But just tell me a little bit about your background, when and where you were born and growing up.
Sure. I'm actually from Atlanta, the Atlanta area. I was born in Atlanta, raised in Marietta.
Yeah.
So grew up in Marietta, went to Wheeler High School.
And what did your parents do?
My parents, they are Taiwanese immigrants. They went to Georgia State University, met there, and then they are computer programmers. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're both Taiwanese?
Yes. Yes.
So you grew up in Marietta.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point did you start getting into, was art or music first, or did they come together, or how did that work?
The music was first.
Yeah.
It's very typical of, Asian families. You're going to be playing piano or violin pretty soon, you know what I mean? So by the time I was probably 5 or 6, music was introduced into my life. I played violin first. And then also was interested in the piano during that time. My sister was playing cello and piano. And then I started playing clarinet in middle school. But then I was introduced to rock music. So once I saw that, people playing drums and people in bands, I said, I'm done with the clarinet. I'm going, I'm more interested in this. But art, I think it really runs within my family because my cousins in Taiwan, they're even younger, they were always amazing artists, drawing. So when we were younger, like drawing and creating things was kind of a part of our kind of normal life, we would just draw and...
Yeah. And did you mention where you went to high school?
Went to Wheeler High School.
Wheeler, that's right. You did say Wheeler. And then did you go to college here?
I did. I went to University of Georgia.
University of Georgia. What was your major?
I studied graphic design and music business.
Yeah. So at what point do you start thinking about, I can support myself with doing art of different kinds? Because a lot of times there's a lot of messages to people growing up that, yeah, it's fine to have that as a hobby, but you're never gonna make it. That's not a real job.
Sure. I still have that doubt. But, well, it really was when I moved to Atlanta. I stayed in Athens after college and was managing a studio for a while, and then I opened my own music studio, and I was freelance as a musician and music producer. So I would take people's songs and be able to create the music for them. And I was also pursuing my own artistry as a singer-songwriter during that time. So by the time I was about 27, around 2020, that's when that was my now or never moment where I just thought, if there's a chance to do this, I need to go find that. So that kind of informed the decision for me to move to Atlanta, to a bigger city.
Yeah.
To say, what if I really gave this a real shot and, see what happened?
Yeah. How did this style develop, and what, I don't want to be too reductionist, but what do you call it? How do you refer to it?
So a lot of this art, I would consider neo-traditional Asian art, because the real point of inspiration was actually at the University of Georgia. I was, I think I had an assignment for class, but I went to the library and I discovered a book that contained Japanese tattoos. And it was a book about traditional Japanese tattoos, the full body suits. And I remember just looking at that book, and it was like something just illuminated in my life. and was so interested. I checked it out probably 4 or 5 times,
Uh-huh.
incurred some late fees on it because I just kept it and looked at it. So from that point, I started to emulate the drawings I saw in the tattooing into my school assignments and really started to try to understand the motifs that you see here, which are from the traditional arts in Asia.
So this flows more from a Japanese point of view or Chinese, or am I not understanding how it works?
All the above. So the Japanese arts, a lot of it really does stem from China. You know, it's kind of interpreted throughout the region and in their own, each country's ways. But I study traditional arts from Japan, China, and also Korea. They have a really rich folk art too, that the style is really interesting.
Yeah. So when you discovered this book of tattoos, did you have tattoos at that point? Or is that what inspired you to start getting tattoos?
I had a couple tattoos. That inspired me to try to get a Japanese tattoo. But then I didn't know how to find it. So I had a traditional American artist try to do a Japanese tattoo.
Yeah.
But it was my interest at the time.
Yeah. And how much tattoos do you have now?
It's hard to count because some of them are now kind of melding
Everything
together.
melds together, right?
So, yeah, not enough. I'll say that part.
You're intending to get more?
Yes, yeah, like more for sure.
Where do you go to get them?
So, I've got a couple done in Taiwan. The next one I'm going to is London. There's a guy I really like named Oliver McIntosh. He does an amazing dragon style. So, yeah.
So let's talk about Chinatown.
Yeah.
That was something I really wanted to talk about. I thought it was very interesting when I went out there, even though it was, I didn't really get much of a chance to talk to you. How did you view that first, do you call it an emporium there, or?
So that's called Blooms Chinatown Market.
Blooms Chinatown Market. Okay. So that's your Chinatown Market. How do you think the first market went?
Better than I could have expected. So that's actually the second one. We did a very first one back in August of 2024.
Okay.
But after that, the Hurricane Helene came, and then they had a sinkhole on the property, so they had to do a lot of renovations to the property. And then the programming kind of fell off, and then we picked it back up this year.
Yeah.
But I felt like this one, the first one, was better than I could have really imagined or asked for.
Yeah. So what are you trying to do with the market?
The market's intent is to really, in a cultural sense, like my experience with Chinatowns and even doing business with Chinese culture, the older Chinese generation, I think I'm trying to build a bridge between the old Chinese generation and the new, because there's an entire experience of not just the Chinese American, but the Asian American, where it's the generation before came and say built Chinatown, they built food court, they have their businesses, but now as time is going on, I think they're having, I just think there's an opportunity to kind of bring a new perspective into like these places, not just thinking about business in a traditional sense. I really believe like the arts and the culture, those things are hard to sell to Chinese because, like kind of we alluded to before, it's like you kind of think there's no money in this, or you can't act, this is not a real job, but it actually fuels everything. So what I'm trying to do through this market is to basically display the power of prioritizing not only business, but also quality and creativity. And I think to kind of win over that old generation, you just have to show them. Like it hasn't been just like, hey, we want to do this, they won't believe you. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. But when I was out there, you started to tell me a little bit about the history of that particular Chinatown and what it had been and what it had gone through. And we didn't really have a chance to elaborate on that. Can you talk to me a little bit about that particular Chinatown and what it's been through?
Sure. So I don't know as much in depth as I would like to. I did some research, but there's not much online. I know it was started in 1988. From my understanding, during COVID, it was reacquired. So that's why right now we're kind of, trying to bring a new life to it, trying to understand its potential and putting the pieces in place to really, I think and this is a sentiment that I've heard from a lot of the community here is like, man, it's kind of like we need to do something with this. This is a lot of our personal history because a lot of I grew up going there. There's a school in the back. We'd go there every Saturday. I have a lot of memories of having that connection to my culture just through that one place. So I think it's important for a lot of the community, a lot of the Asian community to keep it alive and to take care of it. My own personal conviction was just going there, seeing it's like, man, this place deserves.
Yeah. When did you go there and what was it like? What did you do like way back in the day?
So back in the day, there was the Chinese school in the back. So I can't tell if I'm remembering it because I was younger, but I just remember it being a lot more active. There was a lot more community happening there. There'd be times where the whole place was like filled for Saturdays and stuff like that.
Well, it sure was full that Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
It helped you had fantastic weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that a turnout you expected?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So tell me about the pieces. So how many artists did you have displaying there?
So for the first one, we had 20 creators, vendors, and then we had 2 live painters and 4 musical artists in the form of DJs.
DJs, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And is that going to be about the same going forward?
Yeah. I'm actually going to continue to experiment. Like the next one, April 19th, we're bringing a live band. Okay. But it's how they format their music set is kind of like an open format jam. So they're going to lay a bass kind of vibe, and then later on in the afternoon, like you can go up there and play with them if you feel comfortable.
Yeah. So is your goal with the market to sell your stuff, or is that just you don't really pay any attention to that? You're so busy with all the other stuff?
Yeah, I set up a table and do sell prints, but I'm really interested in creating the bigger opportunity, basically this quality market that people can be a part of.
Uh-huh. What did you learn in the first one that you're going to carry forward?
The first one was really to set a foundation, because that first one was a huge learning experience for me, because now I'm dealing with the community. So to serve them, it's like ultimately with these markets, like a lot of times in business, and like I just don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. So whether that's the tenants that are already at the food court or a vendor who gives their time and energy to come be a part and to bring the value, I just want to make sure, like when it comes down to like the money and how we're communicating and how people's experience, I want every person's experience to be positive. And for everyone who comes, including someone who buys something or sells something, to feel like, this was really worth whatever I gave to this. So that first one kind of showed, okay, we need to make sure we have all these pieces set in place so that everyone feels like this was done with integrity. Because that's the only way it's going to survive, in my opinion. To be really great, no one can be like, I had a bad experience.
Right. Yeah. So you've scheduled 3 for this spring, and then is it sort of like you can renew the lease for more later, or?
Yeah, that's the plan. The 3 was to work with the new team, the management of Chinatown, to say, let's see if this model is sustainable and worth it to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. You're very active on social media. You give lessons. You've just opened this store. You've got the market and everything like that. You're really hustling hard.
Yeah.
Is that you? I mean, is that just kind of feel like the way you got to do it? I mean, it feels like you got a lot of balls in the air,
Well, it's after I tattooed my hands, about 3 months later, I realized I cannot like fail.
Tell me about that.
Because it's like, okay, it started dawning on me, okay, like, it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of serious. Like, it's like, okay, I really need to like do this all the way. Because like later in life, I'm just thinking about later in life. It's like, I got to go all the way. And because I don't want to be someone who didn't go all the way and I'm out here like this.
So I'm trying to make sure I understand the connection. What, the hands were just like, this is going all the way?
Well, it's just so, tattoos are vain and they're really cool when you're young and everything. But then I'm thinking about like, I can't be later all tattooed and just had quit on myself.
Just be some old tattooed guy.
I can't do it.
The world is going to soon be full of old tattooed guys.
I know. So it's kind of a joke, but it's more so, I feel like I'm understanding the opportunity before me. It feels purposeful, it feels very, very purposeful. I feel like it deserves a lot of my energy. And it's kind of one of those things where you look at the world and you say, I wish everything was better. I wish it was not like this. But then you realize, at least for me, it's like, well, I have to go and if I have the opportunity, then I think, go and do it and actually be that, actively try to create the world you wish to live in.
Yeah. When did you get the hands done?
These were done February last year.
Okay.
2024.
Where were those done?
New York City.
New York City.
Yeah.
So that clearly had more significance doing the hands than some of the other.
Well, because I got these done and then I went to Taiwan, right? Yeah. So their whole view of it's not American. It's not how it's not how we view tattoos, cool, cute, like the older people. So I remember I had to charge my phone. I was sitting with an older gentleman at a night market, and we were talking about tattoos. He asked me why did I do that, and I was like, well, I don't know. And then he was telling me, you having these on your hands, if I saw you out on the street like sweeping trash versus if you stepped out of a Lamborghini, you would perceive everything very differently. And it just made me think about that. Yeah. Because I was like, you're right. It actually doesn't really matter about the actual tattoos. It's more about the person that is contained within. Yeah. So I was like, that's when it started dawning on me. I was like, wow, you're right.
So tell me about this shop. When did this first come into your head before it exists?
Blooms Emporium. This shop was started in 2023 in Citizen Supply, which is in this mall, but it's the shared space just behind me. Okay. It's always been an idea, but how this whole process has unfolded is I felt like the opportunities would kind of knock on my door because I wouldn't necessarily pursue it, but it would become available and it'd be like, this is scary, but it aligns and it makes sense. So I'm gonna walk through this door, take this risk, and see what happens. So that same happened when I first came to Ponce, and that same exact thing happened with this space. It became available. Ponce asked me, would you consider opening your own? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a big step. Yeah. But I believe it happens for a reason, and I would regret it if I didn't try.
So, and where do you give the lessons?
So we do it right here. Well, we haven't done one here yet, but that's the plan.
The plan is you're going to give the lessons here. Mm-hmm. Where have you have been giving them at like the Botanical Garden or something? Yep,
I do one a month at Botanical Gardens, and we actually did it in our last space. We just convert the space, bring in tables, set up the chairs, and yeah.
Are you going to continue doing them at the Botanical Garden?
Yes, one a month.
Yeah, okay. All right. We're going along good. How old are you?
I'm 31.
31.
Or 32 now. I just turned 32.
Okay.
Like last week.
And what do you want to say, if anything, about your private life, your non-painting, non-music life? Are you with someone? Are you?
No. That's a great question. I'm trying to, try to find the straight and narrow per se, whatever that may mean. It's just, I think for me, just trying to live a life that you can have peace with and make the decisions that at the end of the day versus now you can be at peace with. So I'm starting to think, as I've kind of started growing older, thinking more about my future life and my future karma, if you will. What am I really going to leave behind as a person through the art and how I choose to live my life? Starting to think about those things.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So I used to be like a worship pastor. So I feel like it's something that people are wanting to talk about now. I have a lot of questions about. So I became a Christian when I was 15. Became a worship musician. I was involved in religious music for probably 10, 11 years.
Yeah, I read about some of that on your blog. I thought that was,
Okay, so you read the blog.
I read the blog, yes.
Yeah, I'm very much interested in this conversation right now. Religion, and I don't know really how to start talking about it, but it's important to me now. The conversation.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So do you still consider yourself Christian?
I don't.
So you started that journey when you were a teenager?
Yes.
And I could see on your blog you kind of struggling with that as it went along.
Yeah, it's the struggle is that the experience was very real. I felt the spiritual experience, you're engaging with something very real, but it's the system, and when the idea of God is put into a human's hands, I'm just more interested in it's a lot of power for us to wield and to facilitate. So I feel like within the system and things I've experienced in religion, it's been confusing, because this is who they're saying God is, and this is who you're reading about who God is, but then it seems like everything else seems so far from that, our society. And yeah, so I'm trying to reconcile the experience. I feel like a lot of people are as well, where it's like, okay, we can't completely throw this all out and say this is all completely fake, but how do we move on and kind of find the truth amongst this whole thing? But the problem is you can't talk about it because you'll be crucified in a sense. But I think it's important to challenge that now and to speak about it. At least speak from your own personal experience.
When you say you can't talk about it, you mean because of what's going on in the overall society and culture right now? With political divisions, or?
No, I'm not even talking at that level. I just think we're so communal creatures that being outcast in any way is so just terrifying. So I think within a religious context, it's really hard to be honest. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like they want you to come as you are, right? But what if you actually come as you are?
Yeah.
Then suddenly we don't want you.
Yeah.
So it's a dilemma there. But I really believe that like the truth will set us free, and that includes everything, not just what we want to see, but the real truth.
Has your Christianity ever gone into your art? I wasn't sure of the way to phrase that, but
yes.
Because I don't see it obviously, but it might not be obvious.
Yeah, there's some pieces that I allude to it just because I feel like the symbol of Christianity is so powerful that I think if you say it too overtly, it kind of will throw the veil down of someone will judge it too quickly. So I'm trying to talk about God in terms of ideals and ideas and allegories and metaphors. So, yeah.
Okay. Very good.